Good morning and happy Wednesday. I kind of feel like a newscaster today. I don't know why. So today, just kind of a reminder that I put all of your homework in the on my pages on fcsfalcons.com. So make sure you guys are checking there. Make sure to junior high, if you have a video, you send me the code words. Some of you, I think, are forgetting to do that. So make sure you do that. And just another reminder that we are doing that cupcake challenge. And they are due by next Monday. I think I'll include it in the Wednesday video next week, the pictures. So that way, yeah, we'll see how you guys do. I think I might do it too, just for fun. So yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome. More people who participate, the better. Remember though, if like your parent says, we can't do that, or we don't have time, or we don't have the supplies and I can't go to the store, don't worry about it. Seriously. Families have enough going on that, if your parent says no, just respect that and go with it. So, all right, it is Wednesday, which means it is our day for our podcast. So this week's was kind of fun. It was presidential pranks. So like pranks that presidents have done. So remember, 2 of them are true. 1 of them is false. So I'm going to read through them and then you guys can decide which one is false. I had a really hard time picking, because any of them could be plausible, they're pranks. So, all right. So anyway, here we go. All right. So here are the 3 topics. Number 1, Eisenhower, thinks communist accusations are funny. Lyndon B. Johnson thinks drowning is funny. And Bill Clinton thinks destruction of property is funny. So those are our 3 stories today. I'm just going to go in order because that's the easiest way for me to do it. And yeah, so I hope you guys are enjoying these. I think they're fun, so hopefully you guys like them too. And remember, if you want more, there are a whole bunch on the podcast history or his story. So you guys can go look that up and listen to those because they're really fun. So, all right. So the first story was Eisenhower thinks communist accusations are funny. So we've talked about Eisenhower quite a bit because of the Cold War, because that seems to be a lot of stuff about on this podcast, which is fine. And he was president during the Cold War. He was also a famous general from World War II. He's actually the one who really helped plan D-Day. His vice president was Nixon, who would become president later. And he was known for his pranks, Eisenhower was. And his vice president, Nixon, hated them. Absolutely hated them. And so in the middle of the night, Eisenhower had his chief of staff call Nixon. And he would do this like often. He would call Nixon and just kind of like hang up just to be funny. Can you imagine, like, they're the president and vice president of the United States and the president loves pranks that much that he's calling his vice president. It was just kind of funny. So anyway, in January of 1954, it was 2 days before Nixon's birthday, Eisenhower calls Nixon into his office. And now some of you might know about this from class or I think other podcasts, but there was this thing called the Red Scare, and it was just this fear that pretty much everyone in the United States was involved in communism. There was a list, and that list had a whole bunch of people who people thought were communist. And so, and people were just afraid of communism coming to the United States, and that was a big part of this time period. So, in January of 1954, Eisenhower calls Nixon into his office and says that you are going to be named to this, like added to this list. And he says they think that you have communist ties, and Nixon starts yelling, like freaking out. Well, I don't blame the guy because it's scary. It ruined a lot of people's careers and lives during that time. And so he starts yelling. Eisenhower says, calm down. We're going to take care of it. It's no big deal. I'll have my staff get on it. We'll take care of it. But you have to go and do an interview in the East Wing. Like they have to, ask you questions. And Nixon's like, no, I'm not going down there to answer questions. I'm innocent. He's like, that I'm not involved in this. And so he kept saying, and Eisenhower kept saying, no, you have to be escorted there to the East Wing. They have to question you. And so the Secret Service came to get him. And they took him to the East Wing garden room, and they opened the doors, and it was a surprise party. for his birthday. And he acted like he was fine, Nixon. He acted like, oh, this is so great, you know, happy birthday to me. But he was furious. He actually didn't speak to President Eisenhower for almost a week because he was so mad about it. Because can you imagine, you're thinking like your whole life is going to change because people think you're communist, and then all of a sudden it's like, just kidding, you know. And so, yeah, he was absolutely angry and didn't speak to him for almost a week. And yeah, so that is the story of the time that Eisenhower thought communist accusations were funny. All right, story number 2, Lyndon B. Johnson thinks drowning is funny. Here's a little background. Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, was the vice president for JFK. So there's a lot of abbreviations there. And JFK died in 1963. So the vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, took over. And he is able to win the re-election. And he is actually known for, he's just kind of a character, but he's also known for like super foul language. He's known as being a racist. He's actually credited with one of the most racist quotes of all time. I don't even know, like I would never say it. It's pretty bad. And so, yeah, he's just known as just a racist, not a great guy. He's a pretty good president, but he's just not a great human being all the time. And so, as you can imagine, he's just a character. He did, you might be wondering if you know this, he did sign the Civil Rights Act that Kennedy was really working for. And it looks really good for him, but he was a huge racist, so just know that. A lot of things say that he just did that to get Martin Luther King off his back, which is interesting, but and kind of to appease all of that. So, and to kind of quiet down that situation. So, he actually was known as Mr. Big Texas. That's where he was from. He had a ranch that bordered on a lake there. And one of his hobbies, like one of the things he did was for fun, is he had this thing called an amphicar. And it was a car that worked on land and sea. And you might be like, but I've never heard of that. It was something that was created in Germany. They only made like 4,000 of them. They just didn't take off. People just didn't buy them. And so they didn't continue making them. But he had it. He loved it. He would just drive around his farm all the time with it, or his ranch. And so one of the things he liked to do is he would have people over to his ranch. Sorry, my throat is a little weird. And he would give them a tour. And he would actually he would invite people over to his ranch and say, hey, I will give you a tour completely by myself. Which who's going to turn down a tour by the President of the United States? So a lot of people do this. And what he would do is there'd be like a hill going by that lake, and he would all of a sudden pretend and say, oh my gosh, the brakes went out. I don't know what to do. I don't have any brakes. What are we going to do? And so he would start like going down this hill towards the lake. He would like start screaming, we're going in. And, you know, so he'd play this like they're going to drown. And so they would hit the water, and he would turn around to see the reaction of the people, you know, in the car with him, the amphicar. And so he thought it was the funniest prank ever. One time when he turned around to watch one of his, I can't remember if it was like the head of his Secret Service. It was actually an eyewitness, like they have reports of this. And he jumped out, and Lyndon B. Johnson made fun of him for the rest of his presidency, the rest of the time he worked with this man. I can't remember who it was, sorry. Because he was like, you tried to save yourself, but you didn't try to save your president, which is really funny, actually, if you think about it. And so he thought this was the funniest prank. And he did it multiple times. There are 2 eyewitness reports, but they say he probably did it quite a few other times, too. It was just something fun for him to do and scare people to think that they were going to drown. So there you go. Story number 2, Lyndon B. Johnson thinks drowning is funny. All right, story number 3 is Bill Clinton thinks destruction of property is funny. Okay, so I don't know if you know this. You might not, because it's, 20 years ago, which is insane. So the 2000 election, so Bill Clinton was president until 2000, technically the fall of 2000 and, no, that wouldn't be right. So Bill Clinton is president through most of the 90s, and then we have the 2000 election, which was super controversial. It was between George W. Bush and Al Gore. I don't know why I have crazy Gore. So Al Gore, I don't know why I wrote that. Al Gore won the popular vote, but the Electoral College was really close. There was one state that was going to decide it, and it was Florida. Now, the original result showed that Bush won by 537 votes, which I don't know if you know this. That's insane. Like, you know, a lot of times you win a state by, you know, a couple 100,000, maybe 1 million votes, not 537. So they decide, as soon as they see that, the Supreme Court of Florida says that we need to do a recount. And one of the issues was this thing called a hanging chad, because when they were doing the election, they had this little, like, you had to punch out one part, and sometimes, like, who you're voting for, you would punch out the part next to it. And sometimes, now we do like a fancy, like a pen marker almost. Or they have the digital option now. But anyway, so you would punch out which one you were voting for. Well, some of the punch outs were not completely off. They were like hanging. It was called the hanging chad. And so there was a big question of, you know, do we count that vote because it's technically still there? And so they are working on the recount, but then all of a sudden the Supreme Court of the United States steps in and says, no, we're not recounting this. The results stand. George W. Bush wins. Now, this is obviously like a bitter taste for all Democrats, but especially, can you imagine Al Gore, who was like 537 votes away, I guess 538 votes away from being president. And Al Gore is, is a vice president for Bill Clinton. So you can kind of see how this is like not great. And so Al Gore is just not a fan of Bill Clinton. No, he likes Bill Clinton. He's not a fan of George W. Bush. Now, this is the thing. This is where Bill Clinton comes in. He loves pranks. Loves them. And I don't know if you know this. Right before Clinton, it was George H.W. Bush, George Bush's father. Then it's Clinton and then Bush. Okay, so so he decides he's going to prank them, Bush, before he comes into the White House. There have been stories about other presidents pranking like the new president coming in, but nothing to this extreme. I mean, it's insane. So, first of all, there's stickers, specific stickers that are covering certain things. And so he decides that he is going to prank him, and he goes just so far overboard. And here's the list of some of the things he does. There's other ones that I didn't even write down. And so first of all, he removes all the W keys from keyboards. So if he goes to write George W. Bush, which he's going to have to because his father was president, he can't because the W is gone. They say that it was up to like $5,000 in damage because they took all the W's with them and they had to replace all of those keyboards. And there's a lot of keyboards in the White House. So that's kind of a funny one. Then the stickers that were on the cabinets, they stuck new stickers that said "Get Out" or "Hail to the Thief." That's a little shady, I think. He wasn't a thief, although it does seem shady. There were some images that they portrayed him as a monkey hanging in the White House. They glued all of the desk drawers in the White House closed. They also, this one's so funny, they took every single TV remote out of the White House because, so the presidents have certain furniture and certain belongings they bring in, but for the most part, the White House is furnished. And so, you know, all the TVs and stuff are provided. So they literally took every TV remote, which is funny. Also annoying though, if you're going to watch TV. So Bush filed a complaint, obviously, and there was a report, and they detailed the state of the White House. Another thing that is rumored is that Al Gore took a bust of Lincoln, like an actual like statue bust, like it's his head. And he was actually required to bring that back because you can't just take, you know, priceless things like that. And one former employee actually changed the voicemail on the like answering machine. I know you guys are like, answering machines, what? That President Bush would be out of office for 4 years, and they gave out his actual, like the president's actual home phone number. So obviously he had to change his phone number. When the report was finished, it was found that he had caused like $20,000 in damage to the White House. Just kind of ridiculous. You know, like it's funny to do a couple things, but to actually like destroy the White House, like the W thing, that's kind of funny. And so after this, they actually have been more careful to watch presidents when they are leaving the White House, especially when it's changing of a political party. So like this last time when Obama left to Trump, that kind of thing. So that way we don't have somebody going overboard again like that. So that was story number 3. Clinton thinks destruction of property is funny. So again, Story number 1, Eisenhower thinks communist accusations are funny. Story number 2, Johnson thinks drowning is funny. Or story number 3, Clinton thinks destruction of property is funny. So take a second. Decide which one you think is true. I mean false. Sorry. Pick the false one. I do that wrong every time. So pick this false story. Give you a little do-do-do. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so story number 2, Johnson thinks drowning is funny. Totally true, which I would love to see a video of this. I'm going to look it up later because I'm really curious. All right, so we still have President Eisenhower, communist accusations are funny, or Clinton thinks destruction of property is funny. So, story number 1, Eisenhower pranks Nixon pretty much. That is actually completely false. There are no reports of doing that. It wouldn't be completely surprising. That one's like, I mean, because of the time period, I think that one would be way too far and inappropriate. But yeah, he did not prank Nixon, even though it would be funny. So yeah, the other true story is Clinton thinks destruction of property is funny. He totally pranked George W. Bush and ruined a lot of items in the White House just to play a joke. So yeah, there are your 3 stories. I hope you like these still. And I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to be working on your cupcakes. I'm going to the store today to figure out what I'm going to do for mine. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you all on Friday. Today is Wednesday. Bye.